mathematics were flourishing. Muslims were the first to use algebra, the first to build hospitals, to use sedatives in surgery. It's a proud heritage. So what happened? And how did a faith that thrived in peace become associated with so much violence? Here's Keith Morrison.
The most vexing question of all is the one about God. How could any religion come to believe God wanted this obscenity?
If you ask me, does bin Laden really truly believe that God looks favorably upon what he does? And I would say yes.
Dr. Khaled Abu al-Fadl is an Islamic jurist, a scholar, and a professor of law at UCLA. His whole life has been the study and celebration of Islam. And these days, he feels like a man trying to foil a hijacking of his own faith.
Religion has the power of producing an enormous amount of good, but it also has the power of producing an enormous amount of evil.
Facts. Islam is the world's second largest religion and its fastest growing. 1/5 of all the people in the world are Muslims. The very word Islam means submission, is related to the word for peace. There are hundreds of millions of peaceful, moderate Muslims around the world. And yet, when Islamic terrorists have launched suicide attacks on America, they have called it jihad, holy war. If this is indeed a religious conflict, where in religion does the violence come from? Who decreed that so-called Islamic fundamentalists could engage in terror? Certainly not the worshippers of this American mosque, who are horrified at the idea that their religion could be used as an excuse to sanction mass murder. Are these two faces claiming the same faith? In a word, yes. But how did extremists twist this peaceful religion to rationalize their acts of terror? To even begin to understand, you have to go back to the beginning of Islam, to a prophet named Muhammad. Muslims believe he brought the word of God to them through the Quran.
He thought that he was simply bringing the old religion of the Jews and the Christians to the Arabs who hadn't had a prophet before.
Karen Armstrong is one of the world's preeminent religious scholars.
Muslims share the same values as we.
And the same God, and
the same God,
in some...
Indeed. And it's a marvelous religion.
It was Muhammad who decreed the 5 pillars of faith: submission to God, daily prayer, charity, an annual fast called Ramadan, and a once-in-a-lifetime pilgrimage to Mecca.
The Quran says that it's important to create a just and decent society where wealth is shared as equally as possible and where poor and vulnerable people are treated with respect. That's the bedrock message of the Quran.
The Middle Ages was a golden time for Islam. The Middle East was considered the scientific and cultural center of the world, leading the way in mathematics, medicine, philosophy, astronomy, and art. There were extremists back at the beginning, too. Every religion has them, but they were marginalized, sidelined by the tolerant, mainstream brand of Islam that came to dominate the world. In fact, Islam was too dominant for a pope 1,000 years ago. He launched the Crusades, the Christian campaign to take back the Holy Land for Christ. And in the process, tens of thousands of Muslims were slaughtered.
Awful atrocities were committed by Christians during the Crusades against Muslims, against Jews.
And then, much later, modern Europe, England and France especially, overran the Muslim world. Once it was an empire, then a colony.
Modernity came to the Muslims not with independence, but with humiliating dependence.
While the West prospered in the 20th century, Islamic countries fell far behind. Once great nations slid into backward poverty, sometimes brutal dictatorships, and military humiliation at the hands of Israel. Then in 1979, an event that in many ways led us to where we are today. When fundamentalists seized control of Iran, they were overthrowing the Shah, who was, remember, an American-backed and supported dictator. Their spiritual leader, the Ayatollah Khomeini, gave the young new ways to think about Islamic scripture. And the jihad, which had meant an internal struggle to most Muslims, migrated. to a holy war that took Americans hostage.
Fundamentalists of all hues talk about a war, a battle that they're waging, and their aim is to drag God from the sidelines to which they believe he's been relegated in secular culture onto center stage.
The most extreme of the fundamentalists, say these experts, seem prepared to help bring on the end of the world, Armageddon, believing that their God is standing by, waiting to start a whole new world in place of our wicked one. So they turn to their holy books for guidance, interpreting the verses literally, sometimes dangerously.
It's very easy to play up the more aggressive passages of Scripture and play down those that speak of peace and compassion.
It's a mixture, she says, of a brand of politics and a type of religion based on rage. Dr. Abu El-Fadl agrees.
The text sort of becomes like a drug that allows the eyes to be blurred, the mind to be stunned.
We watched a tape of one of Osama bin Laden's speeches after September 11th. Dr. Abu El-Fadl analyzed some things that went right past most of us. In this speech, bin Laden rationalizes that his war against the U.S. is self-defense.
God has sent a beautiful crop of people that punished America for its sins and inflicted suffering on them as they have inflicted suffering on us.
In other words, bin Laden believes acts of terrorism like the 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center, the attack on the USS Cole, the bombing of U.S. embassies in Africa, all are justified, even though the Prophet said not to kill anyone who has not raised arms against you. Bin Laden's response to that?
As a matter of necessity, we're going to have to save Islam first and then worry about morality.
Dr. Abu El-Fadl says he believes, he hopes, that the extremists will be marginalized again someday by moderate mainstream Islam, but
Islamic civilization has crumbled. That worries me, that the Islamic tradition is more vulnerable to the hijacking efforts of fanatic groups that arise today.
and less easily able to sideline them over.
Exactly. The way things look right now, I'm just not, I don't have much hope that things are going to change in my lifetime.
Still ahead, we know our enemies teach hatred against the United States. What about our allies?
They preach a hatred that is so profound. It's been called a hatred of life itself.
Who does? Find out when Roots of Rage continues.
I was hoping maybe I could hang with Chris.
Dim has the hots for the new girl on the team.
You know, carry her board for her.
Easy killer. All new skate tomorrow.
Over the past 7 years, he's been the doctor who never gave up, the father who never stopped loving, and the teacher who was always there. This Thursday, Dr. Benton will perform nothing short of a miracle. Join us in saying goodbye to Dr. Benton. NBC Thursday.
Now more than ever, at News Channel 5, we understand our responsibility to the people of St. Louis. We take pride in our commitment to the community and consider it a privilege to be your source for news and information. Now more than ever, a day can make all the difference. That's why at News Channel 5, we are where the news comes first. Now more than ever.
Watson's big holiday sale is here. A 5-person spa, just $22.88. A 4-person spa, just $14.88. And free gas fireplaces start at only $3.88. Gas logs from $89. Tanning beds from $9.99. And slate pool tables from $8.88. Take I-70 to the Cave Springs exit. Go south past Home Depot to Watson's Superstore.
They are everyday heroes, offering support in our darkest hours and hope to those with the brightest futures. Every day, providing food for the hungry and shelter for the weary. Committed to the care of our neighbors every day. Please join News Channel 5 in supporting the Salvation Army this holiday season.
Join me for Rams Plus this Sunday, only on News Channel 5.
Coming up this weekend on Today, former President Jimmy Carter shares memories of the season from his new book, Christmas in Plains. Then advice on how to get fussy toddlers to clean their plates. And great gizmo gifts for the non-techies on your list. All that, plus the latest breaking news this weekend on Today.
And next, why we may be getting mixed messages from some we call friends in the Middle East.
They have fostered and festered and bought off and appeased fundamentalist opponents by saying, don't topple us, go to America and make trouble over there.
When the Roots of Rage continues.
Unbelievable.
Ben Stein's mad.
We're talking money here.
He lent his Tupperware to his neighbor and she lost it.
That wasn't very nice.
Ben, you should have lent her Gladware. Gladware containers wash, microwave, and have a super tight seal. And because you get all this Gladware for the price of one Tupperware, you won't get mad if you lose one.
Smart lady. I'll go with the Gladware.
Oh, don't get mad. Get Gladware.
I feel like it's crazy here. I'm not always sure who's going to show up for dinner and when. I found this new kind of dinner roll from Pillsbury. I just take out what I need from the freezer and bake them up in minutes. Fresh, hot rolls when I need them.
In the freezer?
I don't know what I'd do without them.
What do you give? What gift can possibly say thank you to your best friend, accountant and massager of shoulders and egos? You might want to start with these. Kay Jewelers Diamond Solitaire Earrings starting from only $99.95. And you can be assured of two things. First, that Kay Diamonds are hand-selected for exceptional beauty. And second, that she'll absolutely love them.
Every kiss begins with kiss. Deck the hall with boughs of holly.
Oh, deck the halls. Don't wreck the walls. Use Command adhesive hooks. Stretch the tab and it comes off clean, because what goes up must come down. Command adhesive from 3M.
Totally new Nissan Altima.
Tuesday, it's an all-new Emerald with Burt Reynolds.
Can I pinch you?
Do I get to pick the spot?
And an all-new Three Sisters holiday romance.
What guy in his right mind would want to go out with you?
All a guy in his right mind has to do is ask.
Will you go out with me?
Then, on an all-new Frasier, Dad's new boss is a bully, and the boys are going to teach him a lesson.
Move it!
Someday.
You're still scared of him? You're still scared of him, too. Yeah, well, at least I have a girlfriend. Shut up.
Plus, an all-new Scrubs Christmas.
I'm the Holly Jolly janitor. Hi, little girl. What do you want for Christmas?
All new NBC Tuesday.
Monday. And Tuesday.
Show me the money!
Tom Cruise. And Katie Couric. Only on Today.
We now continue with the Roots of Rage. Here again, Stone Phillips.
Though the Al-Qaeda terrorist network had been operating out of Afghanistan, its members come from many different countries in the Islamic world, even countries that would call themselves friends of the United States. How did these allies become such fertile breeding grounds for terrorism? Dennis Murphy tells us why.
They served side by side with the United States against Saddam Hussein. America protected them from an Iraqi invasion. The royal family of Saudi Arabia has been friend of presidents, the reliable Arabs we thought from an often hostile desert. So how could it be that so many Saudis were among the hijackers?
It didn't surprise me at all.
Perfectly logical for you that 15 of the 19 hijackers would be identified ultimately as Saudis?
Absolutely.
Makes sense to you?
Absolutely.
Journalist Stephen Schwartz is writing a book strongly critical of the puritanical and he says intolerant strain of Islam practiced in Saudi Arabia. Schwartz's view is harsh, but one accepted by a growing number of critics of Saudi's extremist clerics.
They preach a hatred that is so profound and so extraordinarily perverse. It's been called a hatred of life itself.
Anti-U.S. sentiment, as you've seen, runs in a deep seam through many of the nations of the Islamic world. Anger and resentment not only tolerated, but actively encouraged by repressive states. And no place is a better example of that than Saudi Arabia, where geology is as important as theology. Oil. As long as Saudi oil kept flowing, the U.S. basically didn't care what was said about it. But if hateful Saudi rhetoric is part of this, can the U.S. afford to turn a deaf ear?
Every drop of Saudi oil is owned by the kingdom's royal family, which controls every aspect of Saudi life. Oil money buys a comfortable middle-class life for most Saudis. But the catch is, no political dissent is allowed. No parliament, and certainly no television or newspapers speaking critically of the royals. The kingdom's only law is the word of the Quran. And who's laying down the law? That women must wear veils, no movies allowed. Writer Schwartz says it's the fundamentalist clerics chosen by the royal family, called the Wahhabi sect.
The Wahhabi clerics are an arm of the state, and they rule the religious life of the people as the Saudi royal family rules the political, financial, social life of the people.
But some analysts say the iron grip of the royal family and their appointed fundamentalist clerics has brought seething resentment over the Saudi people's denials of basic human freedoms. And those analysts say, with nowhere for that bottled-up political rage to be expressed, it spills out of the mosques in the form of fiery, crowd-pleasing sermons about the treachery of the West, the infidels. Uniquely Saudi, Wahhabist tirades exported to the wider Islamic world like the endless tankers of oil that pay for it all.
So the clerics, the Saudi clerics, preach hatred of the West, hatred of the United States.
Absolutely.
And the Saudi royal family permits it.
Absolutely.
Let me see if I get this house that Jack built right. They sell us the oil. We give them billions of dollars. Those billions of dollars build mosques around the Islamic world.
Well, outside the Islamic world as well.
In which hateful speech is vented against us, who are ultimately financing it all.
That's right. And the Wahhabi argument is that the unbelievers are stupid and it's okay to take advantage of them.
So we ended up financing the people that came to bomb us.
That's right. I mean, nothing would be a better expression of Wahhabism as an ideology than the idea of fleecing the West at the same time as you're preparing to kill the West.
To be sure, there are terrorists and their supporters based across the Middle East, in Egypt, Syria, the Sudan. But it's the Saudis who are most often accused since September 11th of incubating the violent rhetoric that inspires them.
You certainly go to the Saudis and say, do you understand the Frankenstein that you've created? It's going to destroy you too.
Journalist Andrew Sullivan of the New York Times Magazine believes the Saudi royal family is perilously riding the tiger by showing two contradictory faces: moderate Arab friend of the West and the incendiary defender of Islam against the infidels.
They have fostered and festered and bought off and appeased fundamentalist opponents by saying, don't topple us, we'll give you these schools, don't topple us, we will allow you free reign, don't topple us, we'll send you money to set up your schools for hate all over the Middle East, don't topple us, go to America and make trouble over there.
Would the United States care a jot for Saudi Arabia if it were bone dry and had no oil?
No.
So if the Saudis are being as duplicitous as the journalists say, then why not sever diplomatic relations with them? The answer is the United States doesn't want to isolate and destabilize the Saudi royals.
If your choice is to lose 25% of the world's oil or keep propping up these people for a few more years, you're going to keep propping them up for a few more years.
The Saudi ambassador to the U.S. denounced the terrorists as Muslim in name only and denied any terrorist links to his government. Dateline repeatedly asked the Saudi kingdom to discuss its relations with the U.S., but we received no response. Weish Fowler Jr., a former U.S. ambassador to Saudi Arabia, says America should be cautious about pushing too hard for democratic reforms.
I don't think we can dictate to any country who have different cultures and have thousand-year histories of their structure, be it tribal, be it based on the Quran. We can't tell them that American democracy is the only way to govern their land.
But where do we go from here? With Osama bin Laden and tens of thousands of others in Egypt, Pakistan, and the Gulf oil states, responding to the hateful speech and teachings of the Saudi clerics. Would-be martyrs prepared to do anything to stop the unbelievers. A place to begin, some think, is with a hard-nosed talk with the Saudi royal family about making changes to ensure their survival and ours.
A regime in Arabia that was open to all the diverse forms of Islam and that was not controlled by Wahhabis would be a regime that would promote a more tolerant and pluralistic view in the Islamic world.
Your opinion, should Americans be looking at Saudi Arabia as a real security question, a security issue for them?
Absolutely. It's a major ally that has made major mistakes, that has betrayed us, that has painted itself into a very difficult corner. But yes, Americans should be very concerned about security issues in Saudi Arabia.
Coming up, how far is America prepared to go when it comes to fighting terrorism? It can get dirty. Just ask those who've been there. We did. You'll be amazed when The Roots of Rage continues.
Let's belt it out for your Pittsburgh Steelers!
I don't care what stadium you work for, all right? If you want to write a check for who let the dogs out, I'm still going to need to see some ID.
Next time, use the Visa check card instead of cash or checks. It'll get you in, out, and on with life.
Unwrap the magic at the JCPenney Huge Sale, Saturday only. Save up to 60% store-wide. Extra savings before noon.
This magic.
Extra savings mean extra gifts.
It's all inside.
JCPenney.
Last year I was on a cell phone. I said, make sure we have a backup for O'Neill. He heard Captain and Tennille. So that's when we got free and clear with Sprint PCS. Real clear calls and nationwide long distance included. So now, wherever we go, what do we have?
A backup for O'Neill.
The Sprint PCS free and clear plan with nationwide long distance included. Every minute, every day.
Now through Sunday, Zales has the lowest prices of the season. Like this $9.99 3-carat necklace, now just $5.99. Quantities are limited at Zales, the diamond store.
The holidays come to life at Marshall's. At up to 60% off department store prices, there's something for everyone on your list.
I can't do anything without the instructions. Nothing.
It's okay. She's got other presents.
They were just here. They were right here. I just had them.
We'll just hide this till her birthday.
She's been wanting this for a long time. If I only had those instructions.
You looked in the box?
I looked in there.
Did you take everything out of it?
Oh, here they are.
Unwrap the magic at the JCPenney Huge Sale, Saturday only. Save up to 60% store-wide. Extra savings before noon.
This magic.
Extra savings mean extra gifts.
It's all inside.
JCPenney.
We now continue with The Roots of Rage, tonight's Dateline special.
The speed at which the Taliban government has been toppled surely exceeded most expectations. But that was conventional warfare, bombs and bullets. Now begins the next phase. Finding Osama bin Laden and destroying his al-Qaeda network is the main objective, and that may call for unconventional warfare. Others who have tried to unravel shadowy terrorist networks like al-Qaeda have resorted to shadowy techniques. How far is the U.S. prepared to go in this war on terror? Here's John Hockenberry.
We wage a war to save civilization itself.
We did not seek it, but we will fight it, and we will prevail.
For the Bush administration, it's a war to end all jihads, and it is fueled by the passions of millions of Americans looking for security and payback.
Right now, there's a natural desire for retaliation and even revenge.
Georgetown professor John Esposito is the author of The Islamic Threat, Myth or Reality. Like a lot of Middle Eastern scholars, he's heard the calls for destroying al-Qaeda in all of the 60 countries where it operates.
I did an interview on a program, and the person interviewing me said, you ought to just go in and bomb all of those countries. Well, there may be some people who, having experienced what just happened, that's their initial gut reaction. But that's not what we're about, A, and B, that's not what's going to work in the long term.
What is winning the war on terrorism in the long run? For nations like Jordan, Syria, and Egypt, it's meant brutal policies of arrest, torture, assassination, and the destruction of broad Islamic opposition. But the Bush administration insists this is not a war against Islam. It's against the specific groups responsible for terrorism. Against them, against al-Qaeda. There is no choice, terrorism experts say. The U.S. has to get ugly.
Absolutely ugly, and if necessary, guerrilla warfare, and even the assassination of local leaders. That's the way to limit the casualties.
Former KGB spy master and retired General Oleg Kalyugin says absolute ruthlessness used to work for the Soviet Union in the Middle East. The KGB responded to thugs and kidnappers in Lebanon by being bigger thugs and, according to some reports, more brutal kidnappers. Kalyugin says the rule book is to have no rules, to literally become your enemy.
And under this disguise, penetrate, and then act and operate from within. You are looking for dissenters inside the terrorist groups. You befriend them, you may even give them monies, and then at some point, you destroy the organization from within.
Or the U.S. could destroy the organization, period. That's what Israel did after its Olympic athletes were taken hostage in Munich in 1972 and ultimately killed. Carrying out that attack was the Black September organization, a deadly and widely dispersed Palestinian terrorism network with operations in Lebanon and throughout Europe. To fight it, Israel launched a highly secret assassination campaign called Wrath of God.
They weren't just trying to wipe out people who they thought were likely to organize or support future terrorist attacks. They were really trying to prevent this group from operating at all.
British journalist Simon Reeve has written books about both the Munich massacre and current terrorists like Osama bin Laden. He says it took years, but one by one, specially trained and well-funded Israeli secret police officers targeted and killed more than 20 people Israel believed were responsible for the Munich massacre. In one of the more dramatic operations, an elite commando unit led by a man who would become Israel's prime minister, Ehud Barak, chased down several of the terrorists in Lebanon. Barak chose an unusual disguise.
Barak, in fact, actually went in wearing a dress with grenades in his bra and explosives hidden in his handbag, and successfully assassinated several leading members of the PLO, and then the group escaped from Beirut.
By the 1980s, the Black September organization had collapsed. In the short run, the operation was a big success that chilled terrorism against Israel for years.
It wasn't just limited to assassinating people. Israeli agents placed obituaries for some leading militants in newspapers in the Middle East just to scare them. They threw bricks through people's windows. Some militants moved their families to other countries. They changed jobs, they moved homes. And in many ways, the roles were reversed.
But Reeve believes the United States is not as free to embark on its own version of the Wrath of God campaign. Though it appears there will be secret U.S. military tribunals for captured al-Qaeda suspects, and there may be special operations planned to deal with al-Qaeda cells around the world. A superpower has more to lose conducting a global assassination campaign than a relatively isolated nation like Israel.
So I think the Americans are unlikely to do that simply because it would be against international law and convention, and their allies around the world wouldn't stand for it.
Do we want to, at the end of the day, engage in a whole set of policies and priorities that are completely contrary to our own principles and values, and then suddenly wake up and see ourselves transformed?
And Israel's short-term anti-terrorist success has come at a price. The suicide bombers of Hamas and Islamic Jihad ultimately replaced the militants of Black September. And as we've seen all too clearly this week, the people of Israel are still looking for their security. It's a cautionary tale here for the newest flag to be carried in the terrorism war. Middle East experts and Islamic scholars say that with Osama bin Laden seemingly on the run, the U.S. can't lose sight of a bigger picture. U.S. military operations must go hand in hand, they say, with a major effort to build trust in the Islamic world. It may mean nurturing democracy rather than supporting the dynastic dictators who have ruled for decades. In short, it may mean a lot more than dropping food and leaflets in Afghanistan.
On the one hand, there has to be a focused and proportionate attempt to move against those that have perpetrated the acts of September. But on the other, we have to be looking at a broad range of options, military, economic, but very much public diplomacy.
Still ahead, they woke up one morning strangers in their own land.
I'm a walking Muslim symbol.
What's it like to be forced to defend your faith, even your life, when the Roots of Rage continues?
There's never been a cheaper time to get state-of-the-art electronics at Amazon.com/NBC. And now through December 10th, get free shipping on all your orders over $99.
Next.
Oh, God.
Who would do this to a cop?
You better watch yourself.
A Law & Order twist. Is the killer one of their own?
You son of a...
Law & Order SVU, NBC Next.
Now, from News Channel 5.
Beloved Cardinals broadcaster Jack Buck faces a new health crisis. We'll have the latest at 10. Also ahead, St. Charles police shoot and kill a road rage suspect. Emotions run high as Americans remember the bombing of Pearl Harbor 60 years later. And a local teen gets his Christmas wish, a new heart.
This News Channel 5 update is sponsored by St. Louis Steakhouse. Book your holiday parties today.
So, that comment you made the other day about the person with a different skin color or religion or language, you didn't really mean anything by it, right? But someone could get hurt, maybe even your own kid. When kids repeat your racist remarks or your prejudiced jokes, it can hurt them as much as the people it's aimed at. Don't teach your kids to hate, because hate destroys.
MSD, your clean water people.
Al Wyman joins Kay Quinn on the Health Beat, reporting on the newest medicines, breakthroughs, medical news for you and your family. Kay Quinn, dedicated, trusted. Al Wyman, bringing more than 25 years of experience to News Channel 5. Kay Quinn and Al Wyman, only on News Channel 5.
Before you give anything, save on everything at The Sale at Kohl's. This Saturday is the one day of the season when everything in the entire store is on sale. No coupons, no gimmicks, no exclusions, no exceptions. Plus, get early bird specials from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. only, like an extra 20% off all fine jewelry, all toys, and all kitchen electrics. If it's in our store, it's on sale during The Sale at Kohl's. This Saturday only from 6 a.m. to midnight. Kohl's, that's more like it.
Television is for everyone, but every show isn't. Check out what your kids are watching. You know them better than anyone.
MSD, your clean water people.
Dan Gray on News Channel 5, where the news comes first.
Coming up on Dateline Tuesday. Every holiday season, Dateline goes shopping.
This robe is on sale for 25% off of that.
Taking our hidden cameras to your favorite stores to find out if the prices you see are the prices you get.
I got charged a couple dollars too much, I think.
So what's ringing up at the register? A Dateline hidden camera investigation. Coming up next, the attack on America hurt these Americans too.
You cannot call yourself a Muslim and commit this atrocity on these innocent people.
So why are they forced to defend the way they live and pray when the Roots of Rage continues?
Totally new Nissan Altima.
The
percussion massager from Home Medics. Percussion action like nothing you've ever felt. It's no wonder it's what professionals use when they're not being professionals.
It's a new twist in lip care. Blistex Silk and Shine with real silk extracts. For the feeling of silk, plus a light glossy shine. Discover what your lips are missing. New Blistex Silk and Shine.
Great. Credit card bill.
Look at these fees.
Honey?
One rate for purchases, higher rate for cash advances, and those telemarketers.
Relax. We switched to Capital One's new no-hassle card.
Introducing Capital One's new no-hassle Platinum Card. No balance transfer fees, no telemarketing, one low fixed rate.
Honey?
What's in your wallet? Hi, I'm Hugh Jackman. I'm hosting Saturday Night Live this week with special music guest Mick Jagger. Rachel, what are you doing?
Stalking you.
Okay.
Television is for everyone, but every show isn't. Check out what your kids are watching. You know them better than anyone.
MSD, your clean water people.
And now, we return to the roots of rage.
The Senate Judiciary Committee held hearings this week on the Bush administration's anti-terrorism measures, including the detention of hundreds of Middle Eastern men. Yesterday, Attorney General John Ashcroft defended the measures, saying they've been carefully designed to cover only suspected terrorists. But some critics say the roundup smacks of racial profiling. One thing is certain, it has not been easy being a Muslim in America in the days since September 11th. Here's Edie Magnus.
They're criminals, they're animals, they're not Muslim. You cannot call yourself a Muslim and commit this atrocity on these innocent people. You can't call yourself a human. Animals. No, you're not even a human. You're not even a human to do this.
Elizabeth Abdrabo and her Muslim-American family have been living in the glare of unwanted suspicion since that day in September. Tonight, they're at the high school football playoffs in Dearborn, Michigan, where they've come to root for their youngest. That's Omar, number 8, the star wide receiver. The whole family comes to every game. Seated here in the stands, they look so at home, so much a part of things. But the Abdrabos say in America these days, it doesn't always feel that way. They know that somewhere, some fellow American is probably wondering if they are friend or foe.
Not every Arab is a terrorist. Not every Muslim is a terrorist.
Elizabeth invited us to her family's Sunday night dinner, full of good food and lively conversation about living under the microscope in America these days.
And my mom told me I have to stay indoors.
Daughter Fatina says her parents were afraid for her physical safety right after the attacks.
And I was like, I have to go to class. She's like, no, you're not going to class. You're staying inside.
Where did they start off?
That's because the headstrong college junior refused to take off her traditional Muslim head covering.
Taking off your scarf is not going to do anything but satisfy ignorance. And it doesn't help anybody, it just satisfies them.
You know, I have unwavering loyalty to my country. And it just kind of hurts that people who would never question it before September 11th seem to have a different attitude now.
Son Mohammed, a lawyer and a proud Arab American, is disturbed by the fact that more than 1,000 men, mostly Middle Eastern, have been detained by U.S. authorities. He has more than 20 new clients now who've all been invited in for questioning.
An African American friend of mine from college summed it up best. He said to me, Mo, I just want to tell you something. And I said, what? And he said, welcome to the front seat.
They're being tested every day because no matter what they say, people will say, well, you know, you killed 5,000 people.
Ivan Haddad, a professor of Islamic studies at Georgetown University, says American Muslims are facing a future on the defensive.
They're being watched. They're being profiled. They're going to be forced to be more American because it's America, love it or leave it.
So in effect, they may be asked to pick a team.
Oh, yeah.
You're with us or you're against us.
I think some people are trying to force them to do that.
But if most Muslim Americans find the sudden scrutiny objectionable, one prominent cleric does not. On September 14th, Sheikh Mohammed Kobani was traveling home to Michigan from Washington, where he'd actually been a guest at a prayer service at the National Cathedral.
You were pulled over by the police?
In Pennsylvania, on the turnpike.
Stopped, he says, simply because he'd looked suspicious to a passing driver. But surprisingly, the incident didn't faze him.
You didn't mind that you were pulled over?
No.
And that the police were asking you questions?
No. If they profile me, let them profile me. What I am going to... They cannot arrest me. I didn't do anything.
Why so sanguine? Kobani says he, like most American Muslims, has nothing to hide. And he's believed for a while there's good reason to be scrutinizing the Muslim community. Kobani told the U.S. State Department, there are 5,000 suicide bombers being trained by bin Laden in Afghanistan who are ready to move to any part of the world and explode themselves. He issued this warning not after September 11th, but nearly 3 years ago, and he believes it's even more important today. Sheikh Kobani charged then that the enemy was both abroad and among us in some American mosques, which he says are breeding grounds for the kinds of extremist ideas that can lead to violence. He claims to have heard Muslim leaders here in America making what he calls fiery speeches filled with anti-American rhetoric, angry words he says they would never repeat outside the safety of the mosque.
I am 100% positive those who promoted that hate against America still are existing.
Many American Muslim organizations view Kobani as an alarmist, calling his charges unsubstantiated and outrageous.
Come help prevent the war from continuing in Afghanistan.
And saying he fails to distinguish between hateful speeches and genuine political criticism of the U.S.
Can't you be critical of this country without supporting the kind of mass murder we saw on the 11th of September?
You can be critical of anything you like, but you cannot be critical and in the same time hiding within your own community, within your own mosques or centers, hijackers or suicide bombers or extremists.
And that's what you believe some of these mosques are doing even today?
Yeah.
Kobani says most of the American mosques he's visited have been exposed to what he calls extremist views, and he feels efforts to root out terrorism should be focused there. And if some innocent Muslim Americans are caught up, Kobani says, so be it. That's a prospect that doesn't sit so well with Muslim American families across the country, including the Abdrabos.
I'm not responsible just because I'm Muslim.
Who are resentful that any honest criticism of U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East may be misconstrued as support for terrorism. The father, Bob.
We're all Americans, and we love America, as I said before, and I repeat it, and we love to defend this country to the end.
And what about his sons, Ali, Mohammed, and Omar?
If you were asked to fight for America overseas, would you do it?
Obviously, yes. I don't think that just John Smith was being attacked. You know, I feel that I was being attacked too.
Sure, I'd fight for America.
Especially against terrorism.
They have to serve. It's their duty to serve.
If they were offended that we'd even questioned their patriotism, the Abdrabos were too polite to say it. And in case there is anyone, anywhere, who still wonders what they think about the man believed to have masterminded the slaughter of September.
If I could say one thing to Osama bin Laden, I would say, I'm a Muslim and I do not support you. You know, you call yourself a Muslim, you're not.
For an interactive look at the roots of rage in the Islamic world, including a detailed history of U.S. relations in the region and a test of your knowledge of Islam, you can log on to our website. The address is dateline.msnbc.com. That's all for this special edition of Dateline Friday. We're off on Sunday, so we'll see you again for Dateline Tuesday at 9 Central. I'm Stone Phillips, and for all of us at NBC News, good night.